The restaurant buzzed with the soft clatter of plates and low hum of evening conversations. Sofia moved gracefully between tables, balancing trays with effortless precision. Friday nights were always chaotic, but she handled the pressure with calm confidence. In the corner booth sat a quiet boy, no older than 8, dressed far too formally for a casual dinner. He kept glancing toward the entrance as if waiting for someone important. Sofia had noticed him earlier. Alone, polite, and unusually silent. Then the door burst open. A heavily intoxicated man stumbled inside, loud and unsteady. At first, customers laughed awkwardly, assuming he would be escorted out. But instead, he zigzagged through the tables and stopped directly in front of the boy. Slurring his words, he accused the child of staring at him. The room grew tense. Before anyone could react, the drunk man grabbed the boy's arm aggressively. The child winced but didn't scream. Sofia dropped her tray without thinking. Glass shattered behind her as she rushed forward. She stepped between them, gripping the man's wrist firmly. "Let him go." "No," she said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. The man scoffed, tightening his hold. Sofia didn't back down. She positioned herself protectively in front of the boy, daring him to try again. That's when the atmosphere shifted. From a shadowed table near the wall, a tall man slowly stood up. The entire restaurant fell silent as his bodyguards subtly moved into place. Marco DeLuca had seen everything. The next morning, Sofia tried to convince herself that the previous night had been nothing more than a strange incident. Yet the memory of the tall man rising from the shadows lingered in her mind. When she stepped out of her apartment building, her breath caught. A sleek black car was parked across the street, engine running. 2 men in dark suits stood beside it. One of them approached her politely. "Mr. Marco DeLuca would like a moment of your time." Her heart pounded. She considered refusing, but curiosity and unease pushed her forward. The mansion was nothing like she expected. It wasn't loud or chaotic. It was quiet, almost lonely. Marble floors, tall windows, and an air of controlled power filled every corner. Marco stood by the fireplace, composed and unreadable. "You protected my son," he said simply. Sofia crossed her arms. "Any decent person would have." He studied her carefully, as if measuring her courage. Then Luca ran into the room. The boy's face lit up when he saw her. "She saved me, Papa," Luca said, clinging to her hand. Marco's expression softened for a brief second. "I need someone my son can trust," he continued. "Be his tutor. Stay close to him. You will be compensated generously." Sofia hesitated. She knew what kind of world Marco ruled. Accepting meant stepping into danger. But when she looked at Luca, still shaken, still holding her hand, her resolve shifted. "I'll do it," she said quietly. Neither of them realized that this decision would change all their lives forever. Life inside the DeLuca estate quickly revealed that luxury did not equal safety. Armed guards patrolled the gates day and night, black SUVs rotated in and out like silent sentinels, and conversations often stopped when Sofia entered a room. She focused on Luca, homework in the mornings, piano practice in the afternoons, quiet talks before bed. The boy was bright but guarded, carrying fears no child should understand. But not everyone welcomed her presence. Vittorio, Marco's right-hand man, watched her with open suspicion. His eyes followed her during dinners, during meetings, even during casual walks in the garden with Luca. To him, she was an outsider who had earned influence too quickly. "Be careful," he muttered one evening as she passed him in the hallway. "This world eats the innocent." Sofia ignored him, but the warning lingered. Days later, the threat became real. Luca's school dismissed students early due to a maintenance issue. Sofia sensed something was wrong when the usual security driver didn't arrive. Instead, a strange van pulled up near the entrance. 2 men stepped out, pretending to check a clipboard. Instinct screamed at her. She grabbed Luca's hand and pulled him back inside just as one of the men lunged forward. Chaos erupted. School staff shouted. One of Marco's guards, who had trailed them discreetly, tackled the attacker. Within minutes, the kidnappers were restrained. That night, Marco's fury was terrifying. Someone had planned this carefully. And deep down, Sofia realized the danger wasn't coming from outside alone. After the attempted kidnapping, the mansion no longer felt grand, it felt like a fortress under siege. Security doubled. Guards rotated every few hours. Marco barely slept. Sofia could see the strain in his eyes, the silent calculations behind every glance. Luca sensed it too. He stayed closer to her now, quieter than before. Then the explosion happened. It was late evening when Sofia returned to her apartment to collect some personal belongings. She had insisted on maintaining some normalcy, refusing to completely abandon her old life. As she climbed the stairs, a deafening blast tore through the lower level of the building. The ground shook violently. Windows shattered. Smoke and screams filled the air. She was thrown against the wall, ears ringing, vision blurred. For a moment, everything went black. When she opened her eyes, chaos surrounded her. Fire alarms wailed. Neighbors rushed down the stairwell. Someone pulled her to her feet just before emergency responders arrived. Marco reached the scene within minutes. The look on his face wasn't just anger, it was something darker. Fear. You were supposed to be protected, he said through clenched teeth. Sofia, shaken but alive, realized the message was clear. This wasn't random. It was targeted. By morning, Marco had uncovered the truth. Vittorio had been secretly communicating with rival families, feeding them information about Luca's routines. And about Sofia. The betrayal cut deep. Marco didn't hesitate. Vittorio disappeared before sunset. But when Sofia confronted Marco about what he'd done, her voice didn't tremble. If this is the world Luca grows up in, she said, he'll never truly be safe. Sofia's words echoed in Marco's mind long after she walked away. For years he had ruled through fear, believing power was the only shield that could protect his son. But now that shield had cracks that nearly cost Luca everything. Quietly, without announcing it to his remaining men, Marco began dismantling his empire. Warehouses were emptied. Illegal shipments were intercepted by anonymous tips to authorities. Long-standing alliances were severed under the guise of strategic changes. His captains grew uneasy. Whispers of weakness spread through the underworld. Rival families saw opportunity. Within weeks, the city erupted into violence. Nightclubs were raided. Safe houses were burned. Loyal men disappeared. Marco refused to retaliate recklessly. Every move he made was calculated, defensive, not aggressive. For the first time, he wasn't fighting for dominance. He was fighting for an exit. When gunfire broke out near the estate gates one night, Sofia and Luca were rushed into a hidden safe house outside the city. Luca clung to her, terrified but trusting. Sofia held him close, silently praying Marco would survive the storm he had chosen to walk into. The final confrontation came at an abandoned dockyard. Marco met the leaders of the rival syndicate, but instead of bullets, he brought evidence, records, names, transactions. He had already struck a deal with federal authorities. By dawn, arrests were being made across the city. And Marco DeLuca, once untouchable, walked into custody on his own terms, trading his empire for his son's freedom. 5 years passed before the prison gates finally opened for Marco. The world outside had changed, and so had he. The sharp suits were gone, replaced by something simpler. The power that once followed him like a shadow had faded, but for the first time in his life, he felt lighter. Sofia and Luca were waiting across the street. Luca was taller now, no longer the frightened child hiding behind her. He stood confidently, though his eyes still searched his father's face for reassurance. When Marco stepped closer, there was a brief, uncertain pause, then Luca embraced him tightly. It was the first time Marco had ever felt truly forgiven. The city no longer whispered his name in fear. The criminal empire he had built was dismantled, its remnants scattered by arrests and time. With the money that remained legally untouched, Marco invested in something different, a small, elegant restaurant near the waterfront. On opening night, the place was warm and alive with laughter. No guards. No hidden weapons. Just honest work. Sofia moved between tables again, just as she had years ago, calm and graceful. But this time she wasn't alone in the world. She had chosen to stay, not because she needed protection, but because she believed in change. Marco watched from behind the counter as Luca helped serve desserts, smiling freely. "You saved my son," Marco said softly to Sofia. She shook her head. "You chose to save him." And in that quiet restaurant, built where fear once ruled, a new legacy began, one defined not by power, but by love and second chances.